Marvin thanked his drunk horse at the Oscars. A supporting actor lost his leg during filming. Jane Fonda never wanted the role that made her a star. And Stanley Kubrick secretly borrowed footage for a darker purpose. Behind this beloved Western comedy lies a treasure trove of bizarre backstage drama, tragic medical emergencies, and Hollywood twists stranger than any script. Here are the 15 weird facts you didn't know about Cat Ballou. Fact 1. Ann-Margret never knew she was offered the lead role. Before Jane Fonda ever slipped on a gun belt to play Cat Ballou, Columbia Pictures had their eyes on a different leading lady entirely. Ann-Margret, the red-headed bombshell who had just finished lighting up the screen in Viva Las Vegas opposite Elvis Presley, was the studio's first choice to play the sharpshooting heroine. The role seemed tailor-made for her blend of beauty, comedy chops, and on-screen charisma. But Ann-Margret never got the chance to even consider the part because the offer never actually reached her. Her manager at the time made the decision to turn down Cat Ballou without ever consulting her or even mentioning that the opportunity existed. It wasn't until years later, long after Jane Fonda had become a star and Cat Ballou had become a beloved classic, that Ann-Margret discovered what had happened. When she finally learned the truth about the role that got away, she was understandably disappointed. In later interviews, she said she absolutely would have taken the part if she had known about it, and the decision to pass on her behalf was made entirely by her representation. The revelation highlights one of Hollywood's unfortunate realities where actors sometimes lose out on career-defining roles not because of their own choices, but because of the people making decisions on their behalf. While Jane Fonda went on to deliver a star-making performance that perfectly captured Cat Ballou's mix of sweetness and toughness, it's fascinating to imagine how Ann-Margret might have interpreted the character differently. The role that could have been remains one of those great what-if moments in casting history. And a reminder that sometimes the biggest career decisions happen without the actor ever being in the room. Fact 2. Marvin actually drank vodka before his drunk scenes. Marvin's portrayal of the washed-up, perpetually intoxicated gunfighter Kid Shelleen is considered one of the greatest comedic drunk performances in cinema history, and it turns out his method for achieving such authentic stumbling and slurring involved some actual alcohol consumption. While many actors rely purely on physical technique to portray drunkenness, Marvin took a more hands-on approach that blurred the line between acting and reality. According to accounts from the production, Marvin would rehearse his drunk scenes completely sober, working out all the physical comedy beats and pratfalls with perfect precision and control. He wanted to make sure he understood exactly what the scene required and where all the comedic moments needed to land. But when it came time to actually film those sequences, Marvin had a pre-performance ritual that involved stepping behind the barn on the Colorado location and downing several shots of vodka to, as he described it, steel himself for the performance ahead. The alcohol gave him just enough looseness and unpredictability to make Kid Shelleen's drunken movements feel genuinely authentic rather than overly choreographed. However, this technique came with consequences. The combination of actual alcohol, the physical demands of the comedy, and the nervous tension that came with performing took its toll on Marvin's system. He reportedly became ill during production from the mix of vodka and stress, though he pushed through to complete his scenes. Despite the physical cost, the approach worked brilliantly. Marvin's performance felt so real that audiences completely bought into Kid Shelleen as a genuine drunk, and his work earned him the Academy Award for Best Actor, proving that sometimes the most memorable performances require a certain amount of personal sacrifice. Fact 3. A supporting actor lost his leg during production. One of the most shocking and tragic behind-the-scenes stories from Cat Ballou involves J.C. Flippin, the character actor who played Sheriff Cardigan in the film. What began as a minor injury during production turned into a life-threatening medical emergency that would change Flippin's life forever. While working on the Cat Ballou set, Flippin suffered what seemed like an insignificant scrape or cut on his leg, the kind of small injury that happens regularly during film production and typically heals without incident. But this particular injury became infected, and the infection spread rapidly through his leg tissue. What started as a small wound developed into gangrene, a serious condition where body tissue dies due to lack of blood supply or bacterial infection. Despite the excruciating pain and the severity of his condition, Flippen was determined to fulfill his professional obligations and complete his scenes for the movie. He continued working on Cat Ballou even as the infection worsened, enduring terrible discomfort to finish filming his role as the befuddled sheriff. The situation eventually became so dire that doctors had no choice but to amputate Flippen's leg to prevent the infection from spreading further and potentially killing him. The amputation saved his life but marked a dramatic turning point in both his personal existence and professional career. Remarkably, Flippen didn't let the loss of his leg end his acting career entirely. He returned to work in Hollywood, appearing in subsequent films and television shows while using a prosthetic leg, demonstrating the same determination and toughness he showed while completing Cat Ballou under such painful circumstances. The tragedy serves as a sobering reminder of the real physical risks that can occur during film production and how something as simple as a small scrape can spiral into a life-changing medical crisis. Fact 4. The iconic drunk horse scene was impossible. One of the most memorable and beloved images from Cat Ballou shows Kid Chalene's horse leaning against a wall with its front legs crossed, appearing just as drunk and worn out as its master. The visual gag perfectly captures the film's absurdist humor and has become one of the most iconic shots in Western comedy history. But according to the horse trainer working on the film, what director Elliot Silverstein was asking for couldn't actually be done. Horses don't naturally cross their legs the way humans do, and getting a horse to lean against a wall in such a specific, unnatural position while holding the pose long enough to film seemed genuinely impossible. The trainer told Silverstein that if he wanted this shot, it would require days of extensive training to teach the horse these completely foreign movements and positions. They would need time to condition the animal, practice the positioning repeatedly, and build up to the full pose gradually. But production schedules don't always allow for the time that complex animal training requires. Silverstein, facing pressure to keep the film moving forward and perhaps sensing that the trainer might accomplish more than he thought possible, gave him an ultimatum instead of the requested days of preparation. The director told the trainer he had exactly 1 hour to make the impossible shot happen. Whether motivated by the challenge, the pressure, or simply professional pride, the horse trainer somehow pulled it off. Within that single hour, he managed to coax and train the horse into assuming the drunken, wall-leaning position with crossed front legs. The resulting shot looks effortless and natural on screen, a perfect visual punchline that suggests Kid Chalene's horse has been hitting the bottle right alongside him. Nobody watching the movie would guess the difficulty behind that seemingly simple gag, or that it was achieved under such time pressure. Fact 5. Nat King Cole was dying of lung cancer. While filming the musical narration provided by Nat King Cole and Stubby Kaye throughout Cat Ballou gives the film much of its unique charm and storybook quality. The two performers appear throughout the movie as a kind of Greek chorus, commenting on the action through song and providing narrative bridges between scenes. But behind Nat King Cole's smooth vocals and seemingly effortless performance lay a heartbreaking secret that nobody in the audience could have known while watching. During the filming of Cat Ballou, the legendary singer was privately battling terminal lung cancer. The disease was already advanced, and Cole knew his time was limited, but he kept the diagnosis largely private and continued working with remarkable determination. His commitment to the film was extraordinary, given his circumstances. Cole was maintaining an exhausting schedule that would have been demanding even for someone in perfect health. Each day during production, he would work on the Cat Ballou set, filming his musical sequences and delivering his lines, then travel to Lake Tahoe, where he was simultaneously fulfilling a commitment to perform nightly concerts. The physical and emotional toll of juggling film production, stage performances, and terminal illness must have been immense, but Cole maintained his professionalism and delivered a warm, engaging performance that shows no hint of the suffering he was experiencing. Tragically, Nat King Cole died on February 15, 1965, just 4 months before Cat Ballou premiered in theaters. The film became his final screen appearance, a bittersweet farewell from one of music's most beloved voices. Audiences watching Cat Ballou after its June release had no idea they were seeing one of Cole's last performances, recorded while he fought his losing battle with cancer. The knowledge adds a poignant layer to his musical contributions to the film. Fact 6. Kirk Douglas and Dick Van Dyke. Both passed on the role that won an Oscar. The dual role of Kid Shelleen and his evil twin brother, Tim Strawn, became Lee Marvin's ticket to an Academy Award, but he was far from the first choice for what would become his signature performance. Before Marvin ever stumbled drunkenly onto the screen, the role was offered to a succession of major Hollywood stars who all turned it down, making decisions they would later come to regret. Kirk Douglas, one of the biggest movie stars of the era, was approached first. Douglas passed on the opportunity, not seeing the potential in the comedic Western. Dick Van Dyke, fresh off his success on television, also declined the role. The legendary Jose Ferrer said no thanks. Even Burt Lancaster, who had worked successfully in Westerns before, turned down the chance to play the drunken gunfighter. Each of these actors had their reasons for passing, whether they didn't connect with the material, had scheduling conflicts, or simply didn't see how a comedy Western would work. The role kept getting rejected until finally landing with Lee Marvin, who was known more for playing heavies and tough guys than for comedy. Marvin took the chance that everyone else had passed up, and his fearless, physically committed performance as both the pathetic drunk Kid Shelleen and the menacing gunslinger Tim Strawn became one of the most celebrated comedic performances of the decade. When Marvin won the Academy Award for Best Actor at the 38th Oscars ceremony, it became clear just how wrong all those other actors had been to turn it down. Kirk Douglas later publicly admitted that passing on Cat Ballou was a bad decision, one of those career missteps that even major stars occasionally make. The story serves as a reminder that sometimes the roles that seem least promising on paper can turn into career-defining triumphs, and that turning down a part can mean missing out on Oscar glory. Fact 7. The film's bath scene was choreographed to a metronome. One of Cat Ballou's most memorable sequences shows the transformation of Kid Shelleen from a pathetic drunk into something resembling a proper gunfighter. The scene where he bathes and dresses himself became a carefully choreographed piece of physical comedy that required far more technical precision than audiences might realize while watching it. Director Elliot Silverstein approached this transformation scene with the meticulous attention usually reserved for musical numbers. He brought a metronome onto the set and filmed every single movement of Lee Marvin's bathing and dressing sequence timed to the metronome's steady beat. Each splash of water, every reach for soap, all the fumbling with clothing, and each stumbling step was performed and captured with rhythmic precision. Silverstein was shooting the scene like a silent comedy or a musical dance number, even though no music was playing during the actual filming. The director's vision was to score this entire sequence with Spanish guitars, creating a musical accompaniment that would highlight the comedy and rhythm of Kid Shelleen's clumsy attempts at cleaning himself up. The metronome timing would allow the editor and composer to perfectly synchronize the on-screen action with whatever music they decided to add later. But Silverstein's creative vision ran into an unexpected obstacle in the form of the film's producer, who had very specific ideas about what belonged in a Western movie. When the producer learned about the plan to use Spanish guitars for the bath scene, he put his foot down and absolutely forbade including anything Spanish in a Western. Despite Silverstein's artistic intentions and the careful choreography built around that specific musical concept, the producer's decree meant the scene would need different music entirely. The metronome-timed physical comedy remained, but paired with a different musical approach than originally planned, showing how even carefully planned directorial visions sometimes have to bend to producer demands. Fact 8. A Clockwork Orange used Cat Ballou's hanging footage. 6 years after Cat Ballou brought audiences a comedy western with Jane Fonda in a noose, Stanley Kubrick found an unexpected and much darker use for some of that same footage. During the making of A Clockwork Orange, Kubrick's controversial 1971 film about violence and behavioral conditioning, The director incorporated a brief piece of test footage from Cat Ballou into one of his movie's most disturbing sequences. In A Clockwork Orange, the main character, Alex DeLarge, is subjected to the Ludovico technique, a form of aversion therapy where he's forced to watch violent films while experiencing physical illness. During these sequences, the audience sees brief flashes of the disturbing images that Alex is being shown, including footage of atrocities, violence, and cruelty. Among these disturbing clips, Kubrick inserted a test shot from Jane Fonda's gallows scene in Cat Ballou, though transformed to fit his darker vision. In the original Cat Ballou, the hanging scene was played for suspense within the context of a comedy, but Kubrick repurposed the footage to show a bride falling through a trapdoor in a gallows, turning what was filmed as part of a light-hearted Western into material for a sadistic fantasy sequence. The recontextualization is striking and shows how the same image can carry completely different meanings depending on the surrounding material and directorial intent. What Jane Fonda filmed as part of a comic Western romp ended up as part of one of cinema's most controversial and psychologically intense films. The connection between these two wildly different movies is one of those strange intersections in film history where footage crosses from one genre and tone into something completely opposite. It's unlikely many viewers of A Clockwork Orange recognize the borrowed imagery from Cat Ballou, but the link exists as an odd footnote connecting a beloved comedy Western to Kubrick's disturbing dystopia. Fact 9. Jane Fonda didn't understand the script but was contractually forced to star. Jane Fonda's performance as Cat Ballou became a star-making turn that helped establish her as a major Hollywood presence, but she initially wanted nothing to do with the movie. When Fonda first read the script for Cat Ballou, she simply didn't understand what the film was trying to be or how it would work. The tone confused her, the comedy-western hybrid genre seemed strange, and she couldn't envision how the final product would come together. More importantly, she didn't want to do it. Fonda was interested in pursuing different kinds of roles and didn't see Cat Ballou as the right fit for her career at that moment. But her personal feelings about the project didn't matter because of the realities of how Hollywood worked in the 1960s. Fonda was under contract to Columbia Pictures, which meant the studio owned her services and could assign her to whatever films they chose. The contract system that had dominated Hollywood for decades was still powerful enough that actors couldn't simply turn down roles they didn't like. If the studio said you were doing a movie, you did the movie. Fonda had no legal ability to refuse the role, regardless of her reservations or lack of enthusiasm. Fortunately for both Fonda and the film, she had someone in her corner who understood the business better than she did at that moment. Her husband at the time, French director Roger Vadim, recognized that Cat Ballou could be good for her career even if she couldn't see it herself. Vadim convinced Fonda that taking the role was the right professional move, helping her reframe her thinking about the project. His instincts proved absolutely correct. Cat Ballou became a major hit, Fonda's performance was widely praised, and the film helped transition her from a promising young actress into a genuine movie star, all because she was contractually obligated to do a movie she didn't initially want to make. Fact 10. Lee Marvin insulted Jane Fonda's French husband on set. The Cat Ballou set in Colorado saw an awkward encounter between leading man Lee Marvin and Jane Fonda's husband Roger Vadim that perfectly captured Marvin's reputation for blunt, alcohol-fueled honesty and complete lack of social filter. Vadim had come to visit his wife on location, a normal occurrence when spouses travel to see their partners during film production. But what should have been a pleasant set visit turned uncomfortable when Vadim encountered Lee Marvin, who was known for drinking during production and had a tendency to speak his mind without any consideration for diplomacy or politeness. During their meeting, the drunk and boisterous Marvin decided to share his feelings about French people with Vadim, telling Fonda's husband directly that he hated the French. It was exactly the kind of insulting statement that would normally end a conversation immediately and create lasting bad feelings. But Marvin wasn't finished. Perhaps realizing he had just insulted his co-star's spouse, or perhaps just continuing to speak whatever thoughts entered his head, Marvin added a bizarre qualification. He told Vadim that he actually liked him personally because Vadim was half Russian. This might have seemed like an attempt at a recovery or a compliment, except Marvin immediately undercut it by adding that he also hated Russians. The circular logic of the insults was almost comedic. Marvin hated the French, liked Vadim because of his Russian heritage, but also hated Russians, leaving Vadim in some kind of impossible middle ground where both halves of his background were supposedly despised. The entire exchange perfectly exemplified Marvin's rough personality and his habit of saying things that would make any normal person cringe. How Vadim responded to this string of insults isn't recorded, but the incident became one of those memorable set stories that captured the chaos of working with Lee Marvin during his drinking days. Fact 11. Spider-Man: Into the Spider-Verse borrowed the film's opening logo. More than 50 years after Cat Ballou rode into theaters, the film's unique opening logo found new life in one of the most acclaimed animated movies of the 21st century, Spider-Man. Into the Spider-Verse, released in 2018, opens with an elaborate multiverse-themed title sequence that plays with different animation styles, time periods, and versions of the Columbia Pictures logo. The filmmakers wanted to show how the Spider-Man story had been told across different eras and media, and to do that, they incorporated various historical versions of the famous Columbia Torch Lady logo. Among the vintage logos featured in this opening sequence, the animators included a specific reference to Cat Ballou. The original 1965 Western comedy featured a playful animated version of the Columbia Pictures logo where the iconic Torch Lady was dressed as a cowgirl fitting the Western theme of the movie. This cowgirl version of the Columbia Lady became a memorable part of Cat Ballou's opening and was unique to that film's marketing. The Spider-Verse filmmakers recognized the charm of this modified logo and incorporated it into their own opening, allowing it to appear briefly as one of the many Columbia Pictures variations shown during the multiverse-spanning introduction. The inclusion serves multiple purposes in the Spider-Verse film. It adds to the sense of moving through different time periods and media styles. It creates a playful connection between different Sony and Columbia properties across the decades, and it pays homage to the history of the studio's branding. For viewers who catch the reference, it creates a fun link between a classic Western comedy and a modern superhero animated film, two movies that couldn't be more different in content but share studio heritage. The fact that filmmakers in 2018 thought to reach back to a 1965 comedy Western for a visual reference shows the lasting impact of Cat Ballou's distinctive style. Fact 12. The Farrelly brothers call it their favorite film ever. Bobby and Peter Farrelly, the directing duo behind some of the biggest comedy hits of the 1990s, including Dumb and Dumber, Kingpin, and There's Something About Mary, have repeatedly named Cat Ballou as their all-time favorite movie. For filmmakers known for pushing comedy boundaries and creating memorable gross-out gags, citing a 1965 Western comedy as their ultimate inspiration might seem surprising, but the connection becomes clear when examining how Cat Ballou influenced their work. The Farrelly brothers haven't just praised Cat Ballou in passing or included it on lists of movies they admire. They've specifically discussed on multiple occasions how the film shaped their understanding of comedy and storytelling. One of the most direct influences can be seen in their 1998 hit There's Something About Mary, which featured a musical troubadour device throughout the film. Just as Cat Ballou used Nat King Cole and Stubby Kaye as singing narrators who commented on the story and provided transitions between scenes, There's Something About Mary employed Jonathan Richman and his drummer as a musical Greek chorus that appeared throughout the movie, performing songs that advanced the plot or commented on the action. This wasn't a coincidence or an unconscious echo. The Farrelly brothers have directly credited Cat Ballou's musical narration device as the inspiration for including the troubadour element in their own film. They recognized how effectively Elliot Silverstein used the singers to give Cat Ballou a storybook quality and decided to employ a similar technique in their romantic comedy. The influence goes beyond just that single device, though. Cat Ballou's blend of genuine affection for its characters, alongside absurdist humor and willingness to embrace the ridiculous while still telling an emotionally satisfying story, clearly resonated with the Farrelly brothers' own approach to comedy, where heart and humor coexist with outrageous gags. Fact 13. Bryan Cranston sought 35 times to escape his parents' divorce. Long before Bryan Cranston became famous for playing Walter White in Breaking Bad or winning multiple Emmy Awards, he was an 11-year-old boy dealing with his parents' painful divorce by hiding in a movie theater. In interviews, Cranston has revealed that during 1967 and 1968, when his family was falling apart, he watched Cat Ballou approximately 35 times in theaters. For the young Cranston, the local cinema became a refuge from the emotional turmoil at home. When his parents were fighting or the tension became too much, he would escape to the theater where he could lose himself in the story of Cat Ballou and her gang of lovable outlaws. The movie represented safety, consistency, and entertainment during a period when his actual life felt chaotic and painful. Each viewing became a familiar comfort, with Cranston knowing exactly what was coming, but finding solace in the predictability and the laughter. The experience of using movies as emotional escape and finding community in a theater left a lasting impression on the young Cranston that extended far beyond just appreciation for that one film. In later interviews, he's described watching Cat Ballou those dozens of times as foundational to why he wanted to pursue a career in the entertainment industry. The movie business gave him joy during a dark time and showed him the power that performances and storytelling could have to transport people away from their problems. Seeing Lee Marvin's transformation from drunk to hero and Jane Fonda's determination as Cat Ballou gave him characters to admire when his own life felt unstable. The fact that one of television's most acclaimed actors traces his desire to work in entertainment directly back to repeatedly watching a 1965 comedy western while coping with family trauma shows how deeply movies can impact young viewers and how art can serve as genuine therapy during difficult times. Fact 14. The serious Western novel was completely rewritten as a comedy. When screenwriters Walter Newman and Frank Pearson adapted Roy Chandler's novel for the screen, they made a radical decision that completely transformed the source material. Chandler's original 1956 novel, The Ballad of Cat Ballou, was a straightforward, serious Western story with no comedic elements whatsoever. The book played its outlaw tale straight, focusing on action, drama, and typical Western themes without any tongue-in-cheek humor or absurdist comedy. It was meant to be taken seriously as a Western adventure, following the tradition of conventional novels in that genre. But Newman and Pearson saw potential for something entirely different in the material. Rather than creating a faithful adaptation that preserved the novel's serious tone, they made the bold choice to reinvent the story as a comedy Western, adding humorous elements, absurdist touches, and satirical takes on Western conventions that existed nowhere in the source material. The character of Kid Shalene as a falling down drunk was enhanced for comedy. The musical narrators who comment on the action throughout the film were invented entirely for the movie. The tongue-in-cheek tone that makes Cat Ballou so memorable and unique was completely absent from Chandler's novel and came purely from the screenwriter's creative vision. This kind of complete genre transformation during adaptation was relatively unusual. Studios typically tried to preserve what made a novel successful when bringing it to screen, especially with Westerns, which were enormously popular in the 1960s. But Newman and Pearson recognized that while the plot and characters of Chandler's novel had potential, treating the material with a comedic sensibility could create something more distinctive than another straight Western adventure. Their instinct proved correct. The finished film worked brilliantly as a comedy while still functioning as a legitimate Western, creating something that felt fresh and different from typical entries in either genre, and turning what could have been just another forgettable Western adaptation into a classic that's still beloved 60 years later. Fact 15. Lee Marvin won his Oscar with only 30 minutes of screen time. When Lee Marvin accepted the Academy Award for Best Actor at the 38th Oscars ceremony on April 18, 1966, he was being honored for a performance that took up surprisingly little of Cat Ballou's running time. Despite playing two distinct characters in the film, the drunken gunfighter Kid Shalene and his evil twin brother Tim Strawn, Marvin doesn't actually appear in the first third of the movie at all. Cat Ballou spends significant time establishing Jane Fonda's character, her father's ranch troubles, and her transformation from schoolteacher to outlaw before Kid Shalene ever stumbles onto the screen. When you add up all of Marvin's scenes across both roles, he appears for only approximately 30 minutes of the film's total 106-minute runtime. That means Marvin won the Academy Award's highest acting honor for a performance that comprises roughly 28% of the movie, less than a third of the total film. At the time, this made it the second shortest Best Actor winning performance in Oscar history, a remarkable achievement that demonstrated how much impact an actor could have with limited screen time. Marvin made every second count, creating two memorable and completely different characters. His Kid Shalene became an iconic drunk performance, mixing physical comedy with genuine pathos, while his Tim Strawn provided an effective menacing counterpoint. The dual roles allowed him to show range despite the limited minutes on screen. The Oscar recognition validated what audiences already knew, that Marvin had delivered something special with his work in Cat Ballou. Winning for such limited screen time also proved that the Academy could recognize the quality and impact of a performance regardless of how much of the movie it occupied, as long as those minutes were memorable enough. Marvin's acceptance speech famously included him thanking his horse, showing the same irreverent humor that made Kid Shalene such a beloved character.